Hello everyone, this is Suresh Ramani here. Today we are going to see a quick look at two very interesting services offered by Microsoft Azure Cloud. The first one is called as Azure File Service. Think of Azure File Service as your storage box in the cloud. So just as you have a storage box like a NAS box or a SAN box, and then users access it from everywhere. Similarly, you can have a storage Azure file service on the cloud, and it can be set up on multiple PCs and it will appear as a mapped drive. So very interesting service. And it could be one of the ways in which you can replace your on-premise file server or sub. And there are some other interesting applications which you can think of. The second service is a more interesting service. It's called Azure File Sync. In the Azure File Sync service, we first create a Azure File Service. So you have one common storage in the cloud. Then you set up a sync service. In the sync service, the scenario would be you would connect this Azure File Service to one or more than one local file server, such that whatever data is there on the local file server, it gets synchronized to the Azure File Service. So there are some very interesting use cases which will come about. For example, there's a company with multiple offices, all having to share files. And these files are large. So since they are large files, you cannot have these large files residing on the cloud all the time. CAD files, design files, right? So you could have a file server synced to the Azure File Service, and whatever work is going on, it will get synchronized. So you have a backup and a disaster recovery solution also. Or you could have a second scenario where you have multiple branch offices connected to the head office. So the branch offices have access to their design data, but the head office has access to the design data of all the branch offices, plus the other head office operations like accounting, inventory, payroll, etc., etc. Right? And what happens is that the old data on the file servers, which is not used for a sufficiently long time, gets automatically removed from the local file server and gets transferred to Azure. So that way your file server also remains active with just the fresh data. Another interesting use case could be to set up a new branch office. Just set up a new file server there and then do your setup, and automatically all the data will come from the Azure File Service to the branch office server. So what we see is there are quite a few interesting use cases for both these services. Let's now quickly look into how the service will look on the Azure portal. For that, I'll ask my colleague to share the screen. Hiren, could you please share the screen first, please? And let's get into the Azure File Service. So what you see here are some folders. There are some 4 folders and multiple files on the right. This is your Azure File Service. It is this data which will get synchronized based on your settings with the multiple servers which are there in various branch offices. Now let us look at the second tab where we have set up 3 servers. Okay, so here you have these 3 servers. It could be in Mumbai, Delhi, and New York, for example. Design offices in 3 locations. And then there's work going on in all the 3 locations. Now, so what will happen here? Now let us look at So you have seen the data which was existing in the file service. Now let us see the same data available on a local file server. So let's get into the local file server now, please. Here there's a public folder, which is nothing but the replication of the Azure File Service. So let's get into the public folder. So here you see the same folders and the same files which we saw on the Azure File Service. And whatever work will be done on the file in the local folder will get synchronized within 10 minutes to the Azure File Service. And this way, the locations, all the branch offices will remain in touch with each other with the latest data of the various design files, and it will help you in improving productivity. So let's stop sharing the screen for now. So these are some of the use cases which we have seen for Azure File Service and Azure File Sync. If you think that these services are interesting and you want to explore these services for your company, do get in touch with us and we will be more than happy to share more details and discuss out how these services can be of use to you. Have a wonderful day and a great year ahead. Thank you so much for listening to me.